And my constituents are furious that you've surrendered on freedom of movement and on rule-taking under the ECJ. But there is good news, Mr. Prime Minister. Do you accept that you've also surrendered the jobs of many of your backbench MPs at the next general election to reform?
Your name wasn't on this letter. What are your thoughts in regard to its sentiments, Jonathan?
I agree with them.
You agree with them? Are you going to rebel?
I do.
Tonight, something shocking is happening inside British politics, because for the first time since taking power, Keir Starmer is facing a revolt from the very people who once promised to stand beside him. And trust me, what you're about to hear changes everything. Before we continue, I'd like to ask you a quick favor. If you're enjoying this content, could you take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel? Believe it or not, over 98% of viewers watch these videos without hitting that subscribe button. It's completely free, and it makes a massive difference, helping us bring you more of the content you love.
Clear, when these cuts were announced, I spoke locally with my party and said I couldn't envisage myself voting for those cuts. I think we've got to be, and I don't intend.
The political winds in Britain are shifting faster than anyone expected. And for the first time since entering Downing Street, Sir Keir Starmer is facing a moment he can no longer brush aside. What began as quiet whispers inside Parliament has now become a story dominating talk shows, dinner tables, and social media timelines across the country. Reports are emerging suggesting that some Labour MPs, once loyal to the party's mission of change, are now quietly expressing sympathy toward Reform UK's rising message. And suddenly, the Prime Minister finds himself confronted with a truth he hoped would never make it into the public spotlight. This isn't just about party politics. This is about trust, conviction, and a nation that feels pushed to the edge. You can hear it in the voices of working families struggling with rising costs, pensioners who feel overlooked, and farmers who say they've been left behind by a government that promised to understand them. You can see it in the protests unfolding across rural Britain, peaceful, determined, emotional, where people who rarely raise their voices are now standing together to say enough is enough. In this moment of uncertainty, Keir Starmer finally stepped forward to respond. His words were calm, measured, and wrapped in a tone of reassurance, but behind that carefully constructed exterior, there was something else, something unmistakable. For the first time, he appeared rattled, not by a political opponent across the aisle, but by frustration coming from within his own ranks and the communities he vowed to protect.
To be clear, Jonathan, I haven't heard this before. You're saying that you're going to vote against the government. Is that the first time that you will have rebelled?
Yes. And I think it's really important to be clear about this. So much of what is in that green paper is absolutely right. We have to reduce the benefit bill in this country. We have to get people back into work. Work is absolutely the right place for people to be. And I think we've gone through a generation.
According to reports circulating through Westminster, several Labour MPs have grown uneasy with what they describe as the government's hesitancy, its slow pace on key promises, its cautious approach to change, and its struggle to connect with people whose lives are affected by every policy debated behind closed doors. Reform UK, with their louder, more direct message, has become an unexpected attraction for those who feel Labour has lost its edge or its courage. And while none of these MPs have crossed the floor, the fact that such sentiments are even being expressed speaks volumes about the pressure building beneath the surface. Starmer addressed the issue head-on, emphasizing that his mission is not about political theatrics or dramatic headlines, but about delivering stable, responsible leadership. He reminded the public that transformative change takes time, and rushed decisions often lead to deeper problems. His message was clear. Real change is not built on noise, but on discipline, consistency, and long-term planning. Yet, as he spoke, it was hard not to feel the weight of the frustration coming from those who expected more urgency, more fire, after years of political turbulence. For many voters, the heart of this tension lies in expectations. When Labour swept into office, many believed a new era had begun, one that would bring bold action on the economy, stronger support for rural communities, and clearer direction on issues like housing, immigration, and public services. But 6 months into the government's tenure, patience is thinning. In towns across the Midlands, in farming villages in Wales, in coastal communities in the north, people are asking the same question: where is the change we were promised? The most emotional voices have come from farmers. They've watched their costs rise while profits fall, and they've felt drowned out by policies they believe were designed without understanding the realities on the ground. For them, this isn't politics. It's their lives, their land, their families, their futures. Many feel that Reform UK speaks more directly to their struggles, and even if they don't agree with everything the party stands for, they feel heard. That emotional connection matters deeply, and it's becoming harder for Labour to ignore. In response to the swelling frustration, Starmer has pledged to accelerate action on rural support, emphasising long-term investment in British farming, food security and local economies. But promises today must overcome months of disappointment, and rebuilding trust takes more than policy papers and press releases. It requires empathy, presence, and a willingness to listen, not just in London, but in the communities that feel unheard. What makes this moment so dramatic is that Britain is now watching a Prime Minister stand at a crossroads. On one side is the traditional path, steady, moderate, cautious. On the other is a rising wave of people demanding faster, bolder, more emotionally grounded leadership. Starmer's challenge is not just to calm the storm, but to reconnect with the people who put their hope in him. If he cannot bridge that gap, the political landscape could shift in ways no one predicted when the election was called. But one thing remains clear: this is not the end of Labour, nor the requirements still stand. Would policies like public ownership of major utilities remain central ideas, or had the meaning of those pledges quietly changed? At first, the answers seemed familiar. Starmer explained that the pledges were genuine and that they reflected his values. But then came the follow-up questions. If they were firm promises, would they appear clearly in the next manifesto? Would voters see them written plainly, or would they be replaced with something different? Here the tone shifted. Starmer emphasized that a future manifesto would contain detailed policies and broader context. He explained there would be processes inside the party, consultations, discussions, and development of ideas, all of which sounded reasonable, yet the question remained unchanged. Were the pledges definite commitments? Neil kept returning to a simple principle: a pledge is not a general direction, a pledge is not a possibility, a pledge is a promise, and promises only matter when they are clear. The exchange slowly revealed something important. It wasn't about ideology. It wasn't about whether nationalization was good or bad policy. It was about clarity. Viewers were not watching an argument over economics. They were watching a test of certainty. Every time the interviewer asked for a yes or no confirmation, the answer expanded into explanation. Starmer spoke about processes, future documents, and wider plans, but the direct confirmation never arrived in a way that ended the question. Instead, the conversation kept circling back to the same point. What exactly had been promised? For supporters, this was uncomfortable, not because the policies themselves were controversial, but because political trust depends on consistency. If a leader makes a clear statement during a leadership race, people expect that statement to remain clear afterward. Then the conversation moved to another subject, and this one carried even deeper implications: transparency. Andrew Neil asked about campaign funding. Specifically, he asked about the largest donors supporting the leadership campaign. The question was not unusual. Political campaigns rely on financial backing, and voters often want reassurance that influence does not follow money. Starmer responded by saying the campaign followed all party rules and regulations. Donations were declared properly, and procedures were respected. From a technical standpoint, this sounded acceptable. But the interviewer was not asking about rules. He was asking about openness. Could he name the major donors? Instead of specific names, Starmer described categories: trade unions, small donors, and supporters contributing through official channels. Again, the explanation was detailed but indirect. Neil pointed out that other candidates had released their donor information voluntarily. The question was not about legality. It was about willingness. Why not simply tell the public? The The moment became significant because the audience could see the difference between compliance and transparency. Compliance means following the rules. Transparency means going beyond them to build confidence. Neil returned to the point repeatedly, not aggressively, not emotionally, but persistently. The persistence itself became the story. Each time the question reappeared, viewers began focusing less on the funding and more on the absence of a straightforward answer. Politics often depends on perception. A leader may follow every regulation perfectly, yet still lose public confidence if communication appears reluctant. And this was the